Welcome back to These Things Are Written on this Wednesday. So glad that you are joining us today as we continue to look at Isaiah chapter 3. Remember that this chapter connects with the prophecy in chapter 2. It's continuing on in this section. And as we look at this section, we are reminded that God has called upon them, has called them out because of their pride, because of their focus on self, and not on those that God has placed in their lives to care for, that he is calling down judgment upon them. We continue with verses 16 through 26 today. And again, as I've been doing, I'm going to read maybe a verse or two or three and then talk about it and then continue on from there. 16, the Lord said, "Behold, the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with outstretched necks, glancing wantonly with their eyes, mincing along as they go, tinkling with their feet." Now, there's a lot of interesting word pictures there. Partially things they don't fully understand right now, the language that's used. First of all, to make a note of this is a sign of pride. Not just of the women of Jerusalem, but of Judah and Jerusalem as a whole. Often Judah is referred to as a woman, much as the church is called the bride of Christ. The Jerusalem and the people of God are talked about as his daughter, or maybe even his bride, the daughter of Zion, the women, but representing more than that, representing the city. And it shows those signs of pride. They're haughty. They walk with outstretched necks, glancing wantonly with their eyes, mincing along as they go, tinkling with their feet. That's kind of a tapping structure that you could say happens there. All of this shows their pride, their focus in self. Verse 17 is the therefore, connecting back to the previous verse. Therefore, the Lord will strike with a scab the head of the daughter of Zion, and the Lord will lay bare their secret parts. What does this refer to? Of how Jerusalem will be humiliated. The daughters of Zion, Jerusalem, are haughty. They think of themselves as great, but God is going to humble them. And we find out as we read a little bit more into this, especially looking at the next a few verses, that he really is focusing on their wealth, their trust in other things other than in the Lord, in what God will take away. Beginning with verse 18, "In that day the Lord will take away the finery of their anklets, the headbands and the crescents, the pendants, the bracelets and the scarves, the headdresses, the armlets, the sashes, the perfume boxes, the amulets, the signet rings and nose rings, the festive robes, the mantles, the cloaks and the handbags, the mirrors, the linen garments, the turbans and the veils." Removing all of these is a sign of removing prosperity and wealth from Jerusalem. Remember, one of the complaints that God has against the people is that they oppress the poor, is that they don't help those who are in need, and instead they gloat over them and take from them what they have so they could have more. Again, as he said earlier in this chapter, like they have done, they shall receive. As they treated others, it's going to be done now to them. For us today, instead of all of those, it might be our gold and diamonds and pearls, those designer clothes and everything, that nice perfume, all of these signs of success that we have will be taken away from us. 24 adds to that. Instead of perfume, rottenness. And instead of a belt, a rope. Instead of well-set hair, baldness. Instead of a rich robe, a skirt of sackcloth, and branding instead of beauty. What a contrast, isn't it? Between all of them, the beautiful smell of perfume to rottenness, a belt to simply a rope to be able to hold things together. Instead of well-set hair, baldness, make no jokes about that, please. Thank you very much. All of this focuses on how the things that people take pride in will be ripped away. It shows the extent of their future, of the suffering and humility that they will suffer. Beginning with verse 25 and 26. Your young men shall fall by the sword, and your mighty men in battle. And her gates shall lament and mourn. Empty she shall sit on the ground. So as Jerusalem is the woman, the men of her city will be destroyed in war. They will fall by the sword. God is pointing forward what will happen to Israel because of their sinfulness, because of their lack of trust in God. The Assyrians would come and destroy them. And while they were spared for the moment from the full Assyrian conquest, it did happen in the time of Babylon, where their army was destroyed. The city was laid waste. All they had would be taken away from them. A reminder of the judgment of God. And this judgment points towards that judgment day when he will come again, and a reminder to us to live by faith, to trust in God. And remember, living by faith is letting the obedience, the love flow from us into others, whether they are like us or not like us, to show them love and compassion and mercy. That's what this prophecy is about. Focusing not on self, but focusing on God and his desire for us. May we do that which Israel was unable to do by the grace of the Holy Spirit living in us through Jesus. We'll see you again tomorrow as we look at chapter 4, a small, short chapter that kind of continues to wrap up this prophecy. We'll see you then.